Diagnosed with paraganglioma at only 17. That kind of sets the stage for everything.
Right. And you'd mentioned these tumors. They usually grow in the adrenal gland. They release all these crazy strong substances, dopamine or pinephrine.
Like carrying around a time bomb almost. Anything could set it off. Excitement, anger, exercise even.
And he could be gone in, what, 30 seconds? Wild.
Well,
Plus, he talked about early misdiagnoses, these scary episodes happening over and over.
oh yeah, and the initial tumor, it was in his bladder actually, like he described, that weirdly gave him some protection.
Huh. How so?
Well, some of those dangerous, what are they called, metabolites, they got flushed out. Probably why he survived those early times. It's kind of crazy a doctor dismissed it as benign at first, though. Really shows how risky his situation was all along.
Wow, tough to imagine going through that uncertainty so many times. But these health scares, they seem to have been a huge turning point for him. Made him really grapple with life's big questions, which ultimately led him down a pretty interesting road.
For sure. Studying philosophy, diving into comparative religions. Eventually, he ends up in a Christian community, and that's what leads him to seminary, becoming a pastor. But here's the thing, even while training, he says he wasn't like a super devout believer in the traditional way, more like he felt this connection to a mystery, something he personified as Christ. And that's actually key when we get to his NDE.
For sure. So we jump ahead to his student ministry years. And this second tumor, it kicks into gear. Starts causing those terrifying fainting spells, his heart racing. Everyone thinks it's anxiety at first, and then bam, right in the middle of the sermon, in a hospital chapel of all places, the NDE hits. Talk about a setting, huh?
Absolutely. And he describes it so vividly, this sudden feeling like a punch to the gut, followed by heat, sweating, heart's going haywire. He tries to pull himself together, but nope, lights out, collapses before he even hits the floor.
And this is where things get different from those classic NDE stories, the whole floating above your body, watching everything thing. His experience, right away, it's not like that at all.
Nope, no out-of-body stuff here. It's like his consciousness just instantly shifts to a totally different realm.
And what's this realm like? Well, he finds himself on a grassy hill with a single tree at the top, and he feels this intense pull towards it, almost magnetic. What do you make of that, the strength of that desire?
It's powerful, like he recognizes something fundamental there, a sense of purpose, maybe. But what's really fascinating is how he describes the environment and his connection to it. It's deep.
He talks about this complete unity with everything around him, feeling every leaf move, every blade of grass, and this light everywhere, a light full of love flowing through him. And here's what gets really interesting. He specifically says he felt at home. And he emphasizes this feeling of interconnectedness, so different from how separate we feel in our everyday lives. That's something that really resonates,
Totally. It's like he's tapping into something we all experience, the sense of being apart. And his NDE, it offers a glimpse into a state where those barriers disappear. You're just connected to everything. It makes you think, right, how can someone listening who hasn't gone through something like that start to understand or even cultivate that sense of belonging in their own life based on his description of this interconnectedness?
That's a big question. And then there's the entity he encounters. It appears human, but I can't really define it as male or female. It's beyond those categories.
Absolutely. It's not about physical traits. The focus is on its qualities. Love, power, wisdom, compassion, and authority. Really profound, universal stuff. And that immediate sense of familiarity and comfort he feels, like greeting an old friend, that's something you see in a lot of NDE accounts.
Now, given that he's a pastor, you'd think he'd automatically assume it's Jesus, right? But he explicitly says he didn't. He even considers it might be someone, quote, lower in the hierarchy. That's unexpected. Why do you think he makes that distinction so clearly, considering his background?
It shows you how honest he's being. He wants to describe what happened exactly as he experienced it. He's not trying to force it into some pre-existing theological box, but here's the key point. He says that regardless of who it was, this being was filled with, as he puts it, Christ consciousness or divine love. So even without labeling it the essence of what this being represented, it had huge spiritual meaning for him. Now, for those listening who might not be familiar with the term Christ consciousness, could you break that down a bit? What does it mean here? And why do you think the pastor felt that connection, even if he didn't directly identify the figure as Jesus?
Yeah, so in this context, Christ consciousness is about being in a state of unconditional love, compassion, and having a deep connection to this universal spiritual reality. It goes beyond the specific figure of Jesus. It's more of a broader principle, an energy. Remember, even in his seminary training, the pastor felt drawn to a mystery embodied in Christ, so he was open to a deeper, more universal understanding of the divine.
So while the being's form might not have fit his traditional image of Jesus, the overwhelming love and wisdom it radiated that resonated with his understanding of Christ consciousness?
That makes a lot of sense. So they have this conversation, very relaxed, and he's feeling this incredible joy, like a child coming home. And he expresses this strong urge to just run to that tree.
He's so enthusiastic, it's touching. But the entity gently says, hey, let's walk and talk. And that leads to a discussion about his life.
And the entity tells him things are going very well, like a general assessment of his life up to that point. But then comes this message about unfinished work, the need for growth, not just for himself, but for others too. And he really pushes back against this, right? He desperately wants to stay. He knows if he reaches that tree, that's it, no coming back.
His resistance shows you how powerful that state of being was for him. He's found this ultimate peace, this connection, and leaving it behind, even for important work, that's tough. And that boundary, a line he can't cross, that's another common thing in NDEs. It often symbolizes the point of no return.
And he begs not to be sent back. A really desperate moment. You know, thinking about our goal here, trying to understand the most impactful parts of his story, that feeling of being more at home there than here, that seems crucial. Why do you think that home feeling resonates so deeply with people?
It's about belonging, isn't it? That deep human yearning for peace, comfort, understanding. In our lives here, we often feel separate, struggling, like we don't quite fit. NDEs like this, they offer a glimpse of a place where those feelings vanish. You're just accepted, connected, it feels right, deeply desired. It speaks to that longing for pure being, free from the worries and limits of our physical existence.
That's beautifully put. And in that moment of desperation, the entity comforts him, places a hand on his shoulder, radiating love and compassion.
And the message is so simple, yet so powerful. It's okay, we will be with you. We will be with you every step of the way, and it won't be long. We'll see you later. That ongoing presence, the promise of reunion, it's comforting. And then, just like that, he's back in his body, in the hospital.
The transitions are often so sudden. And when he returns, there's the physical after effects. Headache, confusion, that strange feeling. Seems pretty common for those who come back. And the doctors, they can't find anything wrong.
Yeah, the disconnect between this profound inner experience and the lack of physical proof, it's a hallmark of these events. And imagine his wife. To be told your husband had no heartbeat for 15 minutes, wasn't breathing, and suddenly he's back.
Yeah.
Must have been intense for her. But the biggest impact, the lasting one, it was on his faith. It totally changed.
It really did. His prayers, they went from asking an external God for things to feeling like he was part of God's consciousness. His understanding of God went beyond that traditional, maybe more limited view. It's like his faith went from a belief system to something deeply personal, internal.
Exactly. From an external framework to an inner knowing. So, wrapping up our deep dive into this pastor's NDE, we see this incredible story that challenges our usual expectations, especially that encounter with this being full of love and authority, who he didn't just label as Jesus.
Right. And it highlights these themes of interconnectedness, that deep feeling of being home, the idea that our purpose, our work, might go far beyond what we grasp in our daily lives. It makes you think about reality itself, what it really is.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, how does this story resonate with your own ideas about spirituality, about consciousness? What does it mean to feel truly connected? What does that sense of home signify for you?
That whole experience, the entity talking about unfinished work, the pastor's resistance to leaving, despite that, it raises a huge question. What is important work, really? And how does our understanding of it change when we look at it from beyond our earthly perspective? This story, it makes us think about the nature of reality itself and the possibility of a much deeper connection, a deeper understanding that might be just outside our normal awareness. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.